Hey guys, it's Levi here from the Roundtable of Wraith. Been a little MIA the past couple weeks. Just a lot of stuff going on with events. I know we promised some Iyslander gameplay, and that kind of didn't pan out. So I figured after some RTNs, I'm going to go ahead and go over the deck, go over the last couple weeks, and yeah, kind of get you guys up to speed. So I'm going to start with... Do I want to start with the deck? Nah. Start with recaps. Spoiler, I did not win this. So, but it's still very pretty. Doesn't pick up as well here. Alright, cool. So we had talked about doing an Iyslander series. We got about 3 videos in. And then we had some scheduling issues between Sam and I, trying to get stuff uploaded, and then we realized that he's tested a ton into Iyslander, and he needed to test into other things, and I wanted to test into other stuff. So we wanted higher quality practice on decks that people were more comfortable with, so we ended up testing with other people more. That's basically why, I mean, we weren't playing, so we didn't get to record us playing. I did end up, yeah. So if you follow OKNY podcast, you've seen he's been on there testing with Oliver a bit. I did some testing with the pitch stack. I'll see if I can get a link to him in the description. He recorded some of our games and uploaded them. But let's see. So we were going to have our first RTN on July 9th. So we had been doing a ton of prep for that. On the 5th, Sam and I both ended up picking up COVID, and then we tested positive the day before the RTN. Like, we both started feeling sick the Friday before, and then tested positive Friday night. So that was not fun. Yeah, Sam was out for a little bit. I was out bad. So I didn't do much for like the next week. But then the following weekend, on the 16th, we decided we were going to drive up to Wisconsin to go to an RTN there. So yeah, we got there. It ended up being 34 people. It was up at Flip Table Games in... Oh, I don't remember the name of that town. Flip Table Games in Wisconsin. We'll go with that. Yeah, we had like 34 people, so it was 6 rounds. Sam brought Katsu. It did not go well because there was no illusionists in the field. I ended up bringing Iyslander, obviously. I started out 5-0 in Swiss. Lost my 6th round. Went into top 8. I played against a Phi. Or I guess I'll go through Swiss. Swiss, I played against the mirror match, round 1. Obviously won. I played against an Oldham, round 2. I won. Played against Bolton, round 3. I won. Played against Dory, round 4. I played against a buddy of ours. And then played against Viserai, round 5, and won. And then I played against a Showstopper, round 6. And I lost that, even though I think that matchup is really, really good for Iyslander. It was an interesting game because he played very risky, where he played lines that were very greedy, that were very susceptible to disruption, but I didn't always have the disruption, which then rewarded him a lot for those lines. So I was thinking back, like, on one hand I want to go, oh, that's not the right play, you got to play safe, make sure you don't get disrupted, but at the same time, playing safe usually loses that matchup as the Bravo. So I think it ended up just being the smart plays. Just go for it, make me have it. And I didn't have it a lot of times. And I ended up, I think I was just a few damage short. I think I got him down to like 3 or 4. But I just didn't have enough time to set up. So yeah, at the end of the day, that match didn't matter. I was the only undefeated at that point, so I was first seed regardless. It only mattered for other people's seeding, depending on where the Bravo ended up. Because he was locked top 8 as well. It was just whether he was going to be like ranked or 3rd or 6th or something. So top 8, I played against Defy. Defy didn't bring any Arcane Barrier, and I drew a lot of disruption, so he lost. Top 4, played against an Oldhim. Same Oldhim that I played in round 2, who I had also talked through what my game plan was, how to play against it, and all that. So that if those of you who have been following my RTN videos for a while know that I did the exact same thing back in RTNs last year, where I told my Prism opponent how to beat me, and then played him in top 8 and got knocked out by him. But yeah, it happens. But yeah, more on that Oldhim game. For those of you who don't know, which I don't think I've talked about it much on the channel, I've got a sleep condition, or a circadian rhythm disorder, to where my sleep cycle shifts every night. So a lot of these events that I go to, I end up being on a very weird sleep schedule. This one, as an example, I had woken up at 8 p.m. the previous day, and had I been on my normal sleep time, I would have gone to bed at about 12:30, 1 p.m. So we sat down for top 4 at about 9 p.m. The event had been running a little bit, so maybe it was 8. So 8 or 9 p.m. Either way, it was basically like 8 hours past when I planned on going to bed. I did not get very much caffeine. I was also just tested negative for COVID. I had been out with COVID the whole week and I was still exhausted. I was up for about 25, 26 hours straight at that point. Actually, I'd taken a small nap because I knew I was going to be up, but it was like an hour or two. So not quite straight, but regardless, it was 8 hours past when I was planning on going to bed. I was fatigued from COVID, and I played so poorly, which I keep playing it back in my head going, how does this matchup go? And I ended up getting him to 1 with all my mistakes. I don't think, if I played at all properly, I don't think he ever wins that game. I also think that if he plays any less cleanly, he never wins that game, even with all my mistakes. I think that's how favored that matchup was. He didn't have Heart of Ice. He didn't have Sledge. I just had all the time in the world to set up, and I messed up my setting up. I ended up blocking with 3 Ice Eternals and 1 of my freezing points, and forgot that I had only brought 2 freezing points to the event. So I only had 1 damage card against him. So I got my 3 hexes out and went, oops. And he set it up so that he knew I had a freezing point in Arsenal because I had sat it there for a few turns. And I knew that he had an Oasis Respite in Arsenal. And I tried to bait it out with the an Aether Ice Vein, and he had the Oasis Respite in Arsenal, and he just pitched to the AB3 that he had. I think he was on Lantern, Gloves, and Boots. Pitched to the AB3 and just took 2 damage. And I saw him sitting there. I was like, I know it's an Oasis Respite and I want him to use it. And he just held it. He's like, I'm not using this until the combo turn. So when I went for the combo, he had all the blues he needed to make sure that he could cast his Oasis Respite and leave 2 float. Right? Yeah, he was able to do that. So my Oasis Respite, or my freezing point hit for 2, which multiplied is 8 with the hexes. And then I mooned, so I only got 11 damage off the combo turn. And that Oasis Respite in his arsenal saved him 16 health. But then I had blocked with all my Ice Eternals, and I just ran out of damage. And once he got to that point, he started just hammering and blocking Arcane, which made it really hard for me to push the last couple damage. I got him down from I think the combo took him to 14, and I was able to chip him down to 1, but I couldn't find the last couple points. And looking back, I could have found the last couple points if I was playing properly, but I got greedy and kept just firing 3 Arcane for some dumb reason. I kept firing little bits of Arcane instead of setting up the last few Epots and Amulet of Ices that I had left, which could have given me an opportunity to strip his hand and then come in for the final damage, but I just kept throwing stuff as soon as I got it instead of setting up, which gave him the opportunity to block. And obviously he never after that freezing point, he never overextended. He always held multiple blues in hand, and just ended up fatiguing me, making me block with all my cards. So it was very cleanly played from him. But I think that the way that he had his deck built and the way I had my deck built, I should almost never lose that matchup. Yeah, so that I ended up obviously only getting top 4. We immediately got in the car. It was about an hour and a half drive home. I slept like an hour of it on the way home. Walked in. I think I grabbed like some water or something. Crawled into bed. Slept 17 hours straight. Woke up, went and got some more water, and then crawled back into bed for another 6 hours. I was so exhausted. So, yeah, it was a disappointing loss, but I was out of it. So I'm blaming that. And then the finals would have been against the Viscera that I played in round 5. The Viscera I played in round 5, I don't think he brought Tunic, and he seemed like he hadn't tested against Iyslander at all. So it was a pretty convincing win in round 5, meaning I think I had a really strong shot of winning the event had I not been overly tired and just getting over COVID. But making excuses, got a top 4. Either way, that was my my invite to Nats. So over the next week, I did a decent amount of testing. We decided, the group of players from Min-Max, we were going to go up to Kalamazoo, Michigan, because we had, of the like 7 of us, only 3 of us had our invites. And so Sam didn't have his invite. Marcus, who I think he's going to be doing a video on here, didn't have his invite. Rachel didn't have her invite. Holly didn't have her invite. Jeremy, Phil, and I all had our invites. So we're like, okay, we're going to all go up to Kalamazoo. We're going to work together. There was going to be a little bit of scooping if we had some mirror matches, invite versus not invite, like within our group. But the goal was get people invites. So we got up to Kalamazoo. It ended up being a 29-person event. Round 1 in Swiss, I played against a Dash and won. Round 2, I played against Jeremy on Prism. It was bad. I lost very clearly. Round 3, I played against a Phi, won that. Round 4, I played against a Bravo and won that. And then round 5, we had Sam was guaranteed top 8, Jeremy was guaranteed top 8, and then we had Rachel, Marcus, and I were all winning in or losing out. I ended up getting paired against Marcus, so like, okay, he's on Showstopper, so I ended up losing the game there. So he ended up making top 8, and I ended up getting 9th because I scooped that game for him. So another really strong showing. My only loss was to Prism that day, and yeah, it's Prism. It was bad. I actually played 2 games against Jeremy in that time on Prism, and the second one actually got kind of close. I think if I hit a Hypothermia and a couple things lined up a little bit better, there was like, it was possible. So like, I don't think the match was a 0%. I think it's probably like a 5%, but it's 5% higher than I thought it was. So, yeah, so that was the event. I ended up getting 9th. Obviously stuck around for top 8 because 4 of the people who came with us made top 8. Jeremy and Marcus got paired in top 8. So they played. So Marcus made top 4. Sam got paired into a Prism. He was on Briar. Spoilers. He'll have a video on here as well. So he ran over the Briar or over the Prism. And then Rachel played into an Iyslander. So we had like a 30-minute break before top 8. So she comes over to me, she's like, all right, how do I sideboard here? We're like, okay, so you're higher seed, so you're going first. This is how you sideboard because you're going first. and kind of walked through all the things to watch out for. I think it ended up being a very close game, but she did end up winning. So then top four ended up being Nathan. Forget his last name. He's a really, really good player out of Michigan. I think he's right now like 13 in the world in ELO. Very, very good player. So Marcus ended up playing him in top four. And then Rachel and Sam ended up playing. And apparently, unknown to me, at that point, Rachel and Sam and Marcus had agreed that if any of them win, I'm getting the Iyslander. So I didn't know about that at this point. So I'm sitting there like, oh man, I'm going to have to try and trade for this because I want it. Because I was pretty sure one of my friends was going to get it. And then, man, maybe I should just stop there. I'll stop my story there because too many spoilers for the rest of them. If you want to hear how the last 2 rounds go, check out Sam and Marcus's videos that should be coming later this week. But yeah, that's basically it. Overall, really happy with how the heroes performed in these 2 RTNs. There's been pretty low amount of prisms and just illusionists in general, which has been really strong really good for me, just because those are the 2 worst matchups. Yeah, so that's basically the last couple weeks. So now, yeah, we're all just going to be starting to prep for Nats. Just soft prep right now, just because based on whatever the announcement is on the 30th of August on what LLs, hopefully Prism LLs, that will change kind of what the meta looks like. But then after that, it's just head on prep for Nats. All right, that's enough story time. Let me dive into the deck. So I played almost identical lists between the 2 RTNs. I changed 1 card, and I guess I will mention that card now. Conduit of Frostburn. I played this the first weekend, but cut it for the second weekend. Reason being is I couldn't find something I wanted to cut, and while this card the Quell one is really, really strong in this, it's really, really good into like Dorinthia, as well as some of the wider decks like Katsu, Phi. I felt that those matchups were already good enough without the Conduit, and I just couldn't decide on what the last thing to cut was. I hate running 2 ofs in my deck. I like 3 ofs, so I got stuck having to cut something to 2, and it bothered me. So Conduit ended up getting cut. Most matchups I ended up just playing the Ironhide Gauntlet. It's only slightly worse in the matchups where Conduit's better, and it's better into a much wider field of matchups. So Conduit ended up getting the Axe to put the 3rd freezing point back in for the 2nd RTN, which gave me a lot more flexibility in my blocking when on the Hex game plan. For the rest of the equipment, Coronet Peak, only helmet I bring, because it's Coronet Peak. Card's absolutely insane. I guess the other gloves I brought are Metacarpus Node. This is here for the Wizards. I also put it in against Briar, if I don't know what Briar list they're on. You need AB1 into Briars that are on the Explosive Growth lists, and like Bramble Sparks, because otherwise you'd only have the AB2 on Stormstriders. However, Briar doesn't do damage or Arcane consistently enough to justify bringing in Constellus. I'm still on the fence. If you're up against an Explosive Growth list, if it's worth bringing this Constellus, you'd obviously have to know, but I'm still not even sure. Tunic is just so important. But yeah, so I'm only playing this into those 3. I've seen people who put it in against Dromai, just as an opportunity to push over some of those dragons when you don't have enough. Like if you're 1 damage short on your whatever it's called. Yeah, if your spell is 1 damage short trying to kill a dragon, Node can help you get there. You're also trying to race against Dromai, so I could see, because there's not really many on-hits that Ironhide Gauntlet's helping with. it would be like Kyloria is about it. So I think there's value in Node. I haven't tested it enough, but I think Node might actually be better into Dromai. And then only boots I run are Stormstriders. Sorry, back to these. Constellus is, I play it into Wizards and Viserai. It's insane into Viserai. This card is so good. Because I play like a more slow game plan. Blocking 1 Arcane, that 1 resource translates to preventing 1 damage and then firing off for 1.5 damage. So it's 1 resource for 2.5 health, which is just an insane rate. Typically it's 1 resource for 1 health. So while trying to block out Viserai, you're basically gaining like 1.5 damage of value each turn. So if you can drag it out a little bit and make sure you get this, I frequently get like 12 to 15 damage off this, or off of Moon, without actually paying for the Moon. It's, I don't know, card's insane. It's also very, very strong in the mirror match, and I assume it's good into Kano just as AB, but in the mirror match it's really strong because there's a bunch of stuff you can do as far as like Channel Lake Frigids and Frostbites, just because it reduces the Waning Moon by 3. So you can like, they play something to give you a Frostbite, and then you've got like 3 hexes in play, and you're low on resources. You can activate Constellus to turn on your Waning Moon, and then you Waning Moon, clearing the Frostbite, because Waning Moon goes up to 3 cost because of the Frostbite, and then reduces by 3 from Constellus. So, alright, Waning Moon. So, very, very important in the mirror match. The mirror match is actually super, super interesting. Just all the little interactions and stuff. If you want to watch that gameplay over on the Pitch Stacks channel, we've got a mirror match, which I may have made a major mistake that I took us like 2 minutes to figure out. We were like trying to figure out a stack for like, actually it was probably closer to 5 minutes before realizing that I had screwed up and we had to go back. But aside from that, very interesting matchup. And then obviously Waning Moon is the only weapon. Waning Moon's insane, and yeah, Waning Moon does a lot of damage. So that is it for equipment. And a Frostbite. I need to get a cold foil one. Onto the main deck. Double sleeved. So I got this sorted roughly. Let's go. Oh, I did not sort this last bit. Alright. Damage. So I've seen people like, it's very weird. You want to have a very specific density of reds, and I'm not sure what that specific density is yet. But you need to be able to do stuff proactively on your turn if your opponent gives you that window, or you take enough tempo. So we need to have red spells that are also really important for killing important dragons in Dromai, but Aether Hail is probably like one of the best just straight red damage cards for us, just because blue pays for it and Moon, so it's 2 cards for 6 damage is just solid chip when you have the opportunity. Ice Bolt, I really, really like this card. It's with Tunic, it's a blue for 7, or it can just be a blue for 5. But another notable interaction is with Channel Lake Frigid. This costing 2 lets you pitch 2 different ice cards to play it, so you get to chip while threatening to keep Channel Lake Frigid. You do have to be careful about going for that line against stuff with high Arcane Barrier, because it doesn't actually chip that much damage, because they're just going to pitch and not try and play through Channel Lake Frigid. But against stuff with low Arcane Barrier, like 0 or 1, it just pushes a ton of damage, and still keeps your channel in play. Same deal with the Aether Ice Vein, even though Aether Ice Vein is just so much better. Well, in most situations, Ice Vein's better. There are situations where Ice Bolt is better. Just having the tax on the fuse is really, really strong. This is probably one of the best cards in the deck. It's one of the best cards in the deck. And then I've got Freezing Points, which are primarily there for just pushing damage in certain matchups like Dromai and Prism where you just need to race. It's just a 3 for 5 is fine. But then in the combo matchups, it's obviously like our highest damage option. Yeah, so that's all I have for the red attacks or spells. And I've seen people, and I also don't have any yellows in that category, so I've seen people play Aether Ice Vein in the other colors. Yellow Aether Ice Vein is on my watch list, but I haven't gotten around to actually testing it. It's good in theory, but deck space is really tight, so I'm hesitant to play it. But right now, this is just the 12 like damage spells that I'm playing. They're out of order now. 1 second. Cool. Next I've got blue damage spells. I don't run that many. Most of the damage on my opponent's turn should be coming from Waning Moon, and I'd rather have Disruption. So the only things I have here are Frostings, Aether Hails, and Ice Eternals. Which Ice Eternal's weird, because it's like kind of a combo piece, kind of a blue damage card. It doesn't make a Frostbite when casted, unless you pay into it. But when I'm sorting the deck, it's technically a blue that deals damage out of my arsenal. So this is usually just for combo with Frost Hexes. If they don't have Frost Hexes, this card's pretty underrated. There are opportunities where you can like play it just to proc Chill or Amulet of Ice to slow down that turn. But most of the time I'm trying to block or pitch with this card. I don't want to set it up in Arsenal unless there's at least 2 hexes in play. Just because it kind of commits you to playing it. And you have to make sure that you draw a bunch of blues. So on first cycle, there's a chance you hit multiple red hand, in which case Ice Eternal and Arsenal feels really clunky. Frosting is just really, really strong. Frosting pairs really well with Sigil into Moon. Aether Hail just pairs really well with Moon. They're also very important for hitting dragons against Dromai and ending their turn early. These 1 and 2 damage. But yeah, like I said, I prefer the disruptive blues. However, you'll notice all of the damage ones actually block 3, whereas almost all of the disruptive blue ice cards are only blocking 2. So you got to find a balance. You'll note that I don't have Ice Bolt in here. The reason being is it feels rather clunky with Waning Moon, because you would need your Tunic, and we've got a lot of turn cycles that really need a Tunic. So sometimes you don't hit those and you'll have a Tunic resource sitting for a while, and a lot of times you'll draw into it when you don't have your Tunic and you'll go, crap, I wish I had my Tunic right now. So when you compare, so unless you're using Tunic, Ice Bolt is just an underwhelming card to play out of Arsenal. It is a 3-block, which gives it some validity. So it's close on the list. It's right up there with Yellow Aether Ice Vein is like, if I decide I want, it's like next, words are hard. It's something that I will probably fit in at some point and try out, but right now it just is like card 84 through 86 or so. Yeah, so that's it for the blue damage. Next I've got combo pieces, or combo / permanents, auras, items, all that good stuff. Which is just the 12. We got Epots, which these are only in there for slow matchups. You can't really play them to aggro effectively as a no block that doesn't make a Frostbite when played out of Arsenal. However, it's really, really important for the combo decks that have a ton of blues, and you need to be able to take expensive turns, and you kind of get some downtime to set them up. I think if you play against an Oldhim with Heart of Ice, these are they're basically required to win. Like, you can't, I don't know. I don't know how you beat him without it, because you need these for the Ice Eternals. Next is Amulet of Ice, which is still, even though it's a 0-block, it does get played into a lot of the aggro matchups. It's another 0-cost blue ice card that will pair well with Sigil of Permafrost into Moon. As well as You can play it and then Sigil of Permafrost, pop the Amulet, Moon, and their turn's over. If you really need to stop a turn. It's kind of there as an on-demand disruption. Insidious Chill. Card is insane. It just swings so much tempo, especially when paired with Aether Ice Vein. Their turn's over at that point if you've got one in play. As well as paired with Sigil of Permafrost. You just end turns. Which, yeah, it's really, really good. It sucks it blocks 2, but it is what it is. And then Frost Hex, obviously. These are pretty much only getting casted very early into aggro or into slow matchups. Yeah, like if my opponent's on like 38 plus, I'll cast the first one into aggro, but most of the time you just don't get to get this down. And that's fine. It's a blue 3-block ice card. It's just a little too expensive to develop. Into control decks, I've actually been finding into like Bravo, I've only been needing 2 Frost Hexes most of the time, because they're learning you can't just block out the Iyslander, you have to aggro. So I'm getting chip damage in, and so like I'll have 2 Frost Hexes down and they're on like 23 or something, and 23 is like killable. So I don't want to sacrifice enough all the stuff to get the 3rd Frost Hex down. But yeah, I like the 23 range, and when I say killable, I mean I can do like 16 damage and put them in range of just a couple good hands. Like, they have to play super careful if you combo them down to like 13 or something. So, or sorry, if you combo down to like 5 to 6. So yeah, 2 Frost Hexes is usually enough in that matchup. It's only the 3rd. If they're playing super slow, you have time to get the 3rd down. Or if they're like an Oldhim, you probably still need all 3, because he has like Crown and cheeky stuff he can do with Oasis for Spites and all that, so your combo turn may not do that much damage. Onto blue Disruption. Arctic Incarceration and Winter's Bite, very similar. I like Winter's Bite a little bit more, but Arctic Incarceration can just do a little bit more damage with Frost Hexes. But they're very similar in a 2 resource tax, when most decks are planning on 1 resource tax against us. So they're very powerful in those specific situations. Next is Cold Snap. Card's insane. The fact that it replaces itself makes it Frostbite, potentially taxes them 1 and lets you shoot Moon off pitching a blue, and then still have a 4-card hand to block with. It's just insane. I tried Polar Blast for a little bit. I think when I made the changes, Polar Blast just didn't fit with the other changes I made. But I think there's an argument to fitting like 1 or 2 Polar Blasts. 3, it probably gets a little clunky because you don't want to draw a Cold Snap and a Polar Blast, or 2 Polar Blasts or 2 Cold Snaps very much. Just because they're 2 blocks, and you obviously can only Arsenal 1. So when I put in 3 Polar Blasts, I felt like I had too many things that were fighting for my Arsenal slot. So that's it for like just generic disruption. These are good against everything. Specific disruption, we've got Hypothermia. This card is very good in the matchups where it's very good. Like, it's insane in matchups where it's good. It also doesn't do a lot in a lot of matchups. So it's often sideboarded, but it's just a straight power card in specific matchups. Blizzard, similar deal. Blizzard being an instant makes it not turn on Moon, which is a little bit annoying sometimes. However, the fact that it is a 3 resource tax, anything that is resource hungry, we're trading our 3 resources for their 3 resources, which is a good trade because most of the time we have more resources than them. So again, these come in very similar matchups. And then Channel Lake Frigid, probably one of the best cards in the deck into aggro. If you can keep it out, just because we get to cast it, and then we get 1 extra turn of Channel Lake Frigid is the takeaway here. And most of the time, you play it down, and then your immediate you're blocking and then you just peek to keep it. And then they have a hard time pushing through that, and then you get to hold a bit of a hand and pitch 2 ice cards to play a proactive turn. And that's how you end up keeping Chilling Like Frigid for 3 of their turns quite often. Yeah. That's it for my disruption. Next is defensive package. I play 3 blue sigils. Blue sigil is frequently just a blue pitch, often like just a coronet peak. Sometimes you need it to hit breakpoints, or when you just need a sigil, like, you know, you played a 0 cost out of Arsenal, you get to sigil. Taking 2 damage doesn't matter when this turns on the ability to shut down their turn, proc your chills, proc your amulets, but a lot of times it's just a blue pitch, which is also important in the Guardian matchups, because you get to pitch blue early on for your second cycle when you combo, because it's harder to pitch the reds for second cycle. So I could see cutting maybe 1 blue, go down to 5 sigils, but again, I'm a 3 of person at heart, which is not great because there's definitely justifications to not playing 3 ofs in situations, but I like my 3 ofs. So that's where I'm at on the sigils. I'm also running triple Fate and triple Sync. I tried cutting Fate for Blue Brother in Arms. The Blue Brother in Arms is a 1 for 4. However, I don't know, it didn't quite feel as good as it felt, or as it looked on paper. It also probably had something to do with the fact that I was putting in Polar Blasts at the same time. So having less 0 costs out of Arsenal makes Blue Brother even more clunky, because it doesn't fit your turn cycles as well. And then, yeah, I think I was just salty after getting exuded a few too many times with this many D-reacts. But I think Fate is still just really good. And then Oasis Respite is insane. We're almost always lower than our opponent. So this is a 1 for 5 with flexibility as far as dominate and split damage. Yeah, card's insane. And if it's not healing you, you're probably already winning that game really hard, because you should still have your Striders left. And if we're ahead in health and have our Striders, we're just in an amazing position. Yeah. So that's it for the defensive package. I run a lot more defensive cards than most. Most people are on like something like this, like 9. I've seen maybe like 10, but I'm on the 15. I'm a very defensive player at heart, so that probably plays into it, but I've liked them so far. I think they're really important for surviving the aggro onslaught until you find opportunities, as opposed to just making opportunities. And then the last few cards, we've got one of Nourishing, which if I decide to run the Blue Brother in Arms, or Blue Winter's Grasp is another consideration into Dromai, just as an option for killing Thamai. And it's a blue ice block 3. But I don't know, Nourishing is just so good, and I'd have to cut Nourishing for those, so right now Nourishing is staying in. And then Command and Conquers and Fighting Spirits. I haven't been hitting a lot of Illusionists, so I haven't actually boarded these in, and I guess I played them against Prism. But I'm not hitting Illusionists, but I think that they're really important for the Dromai matchup. I played against Alexi last night. Command and Conquer was so fun. I played a ton of Lexi, and I know the pain of getting Command and Conquered. So getting to just cast these into Lexi, being on the other side, was way too much fun. But yeah, it's mainly going to be a popper. I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I want to play these into other aggro decks. I think it might just be Lexi, but I'm unsure. But it's mainly a popper for Dromai. So yeah, that is the full list right now. Again, the difference I ran at the other event was took out 1 freezing point for the Conduit of Frostburn. I don't know where. Oh, here it is. And I think that was a mistake. I it made me a lot more scared to block with Freezing Point. I like being able to block with 2 of them, and as long as I know where one is in my deck, like if I can pitch one early, then I can block with the next 2, and I don't get in a situation where it's like, oh, I'm on like 2 hexes and they're a bit out of range and I draw my only Freezing Point left. It's like I can pitch it, it's just going to take a while, or I can hold it. Just having a 3rd one in the deck lets you play off of the one that's in the best position for how the game is going. So I definitely like that at 3. Yeah, it might be like a blue Sigil of Permafrost that gets cut for the Conduit, but I don't know. I cut the Conduit and I haven't missed it too much, even though I was super high on this card early on. Yeah, so that is the deck. That is a recap of the past few weeks. Yeah, there's a lot to the deck. Just as far as how you play different matchups and all that good stuff. I've been like mentally compiling a list of ideas for a video as far as like going over key interactions with each matchup as Iyslander, and like different game plans and things to watch for. But like there's so much information there, and it makes it a little bit difficult to figure it all out, especially when I haven't played all of the matchups. There's a few that are still like kind of in theory, or I haven't gotten to play enough times to where I'm comfortable with what the correct answer is. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I guess for those who really want that information, yeah, so there's another player, James Adams. He won his Road to Nationals with Iyslander, and we compared deck lists afterwards, and we were super close. There was only a few different cards. I think he has the yellow Aether Ice Veins in there. He had cut down the blue Sigils down to 1. I think it was like one other card different, but we came up with our lists almost completely independently, and ended up being, I think, less than 9 cards off. I think he had also cut 3 poppers for something else. But he put an article on the Wraith Times if you have a subscription there. It's a very, very good in-depth article that discusses different matchups, and honestly, it's probably going to cover a lot of the information I talked about when going through here, but it also goes into depth on some different matchup stuff. So if you have that subscription, or you want to support the Wraith Times and get a subscription there, definitely check out that article. I'll see if I can get a link to the article in the description as well. But yeah, I'll probably end up making a video with similar information, but you know me when I say I'll make a video and then go silent for 3 weeks, so hopefully it'll appear in the near future. So yeah, I think that's all I got. Ryan was supposed to run this video with me, but he was having technical difficulties yesterday, and our schedules weren't going to line up for the next few days, so I got to do it solo. And I think I did an okay job. So, alright. That is all I got. Thanks for watching. Roundtable of Wraith, out.